All right, so I'm not going to do a whole lot to this truck, but I do want to do a couple of things to it that kind of irritate me. So for some reason, the F-150 Lightning seems to have more rake than the traditional ICE, as they call it, F-150s. You know, all these pickup trucks have some rake. It's designed into them on purpose so that when you hook a trailer on or put a load in the bed, it'll sit level. But this truck right here has way too much rake. And in the previous video where I had my 26-foot enclosed car hauler hooked up to it, it still wasn't sitting level because of just the enormous amount of rake that's in these trucks. And I took some measurements, rear and front, measuring from the center of the hub to the lip of the fender, and there's actually 3 inches of difference in the back. So what I decided to do is just go with a standard leveling kit like I've used on trucks before, because it's very effective, very inexpensive. You know how much lift you're going to end up with. It doesn't change the factory ride quality much at all, because you're still, you know, reusing the factory coils and everything. So that's what I decided to do. So I went to MotoFab. I've been getting my lift kits and leveling kits from this place for a long time. Had a lot of luck with them, and they just sent me some spacers here, which you can see I've already kind of assembled the studs, and I used a little bit of blue thread locker on them. And so now I'm ready to put them in the front of the truck. And basically what you do is just stick these on the top of the struts, and then you reuse the factory hardware that's in there now to tighten this down to the strut. And these new studs that I put in there are going to be the ones that are protruding up through the bucket. So this kind of a kit is pretty easy to install. Any shade tree mechanic that's got some tools can do something like this in the driveway. And I was just up underneath of the Lightning here a few minutes ago checking it out, and it looks like it's actually going to be pretty straightforward. I mean, there's nothing unique about it up in the front end. Actually, it looks like it's a little bit easier to do than some of the other independent front suspensions that I've done before. Looks like it's going to be, you know, a good amount of room in there, I guess, to move things around. So like I said, I've got some blue thread locker I'm going to put on the fasteners. I already put some on the studs, and these little nuts here they give you are the nylock style nuts, so everything should be good and tight. And the ones that I got here are 1.5 inches, because like I said, the reason they put the rake in these trucks is so that when you load them up or put a trailer behind them, they will sit more level. So I don't want to completely eliminate all of the rake. I just want to take a little bit of it out and make it look a little nicer while still leaving enough rake that it's a functional truck. So I went with the 1.5 inch level, which should just get me enough to make it, you know, do what I want to do. So I'm going to pop that on tomorrow morning. By the way, this bed cover that I went with is working out great. This is the Gator FX cover. It's not a roll-up cover, but it's a hard shell aluminum kind of cover, so it's a little more secure, and I've been really enjoying this. It's working out great. The roll-up covers are pretty nice, but they're just so much money, almost twice the price. So I was able to get into this tri-fold aluminum cover, and also you can fold this up and get it completely out of the way for full bed access without removing the cover. So I was able to do this for a lot less money, and it's working out pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just gonna, like I said, level the front of this thing up a little bit, and then I'm going to decide what to do about the wheels and tires. I don't really like these wheels that they put on these Lightning trucks. Never have. I don't know, I don't like the design of them. Usually I'm a big fan of this like anthracite gray color on wheels, but for this particular truck, it just doesn't really work for me. I don't know. It's all very subjective, I know, but I'm just not a big fan of these wheels they put on the Lightnings. And I'm not a big fan of 20-inch wheels either. I like to have more tire sidewall than wheel. You know, it rides better traction, more puncture resistant, better if you have to go off-road, they're better. They ride a little better, just better all the way around to have a smaller wheel and more tire. So I'm toying with the idea of picking up some 18-inch wheels, maybe something with a little less offset. I don't want them poking out a whole lot, but I kind of would. I mean, look how far they're tucked up under, especially the rears. I kind of would like to bring them out even with the fenders or so anyway. So I could either use some wheel spacers and just keep this set up, or I can get some aftermarket wheels, go down to 18s like I would really prefer to have, and do that. I don't know. I got some more time to think about that. But right now, I just want to get it leveled up, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get it done. Now, like I said, I took some measurements, and right now there's 3 inches of difference. I got like 25 inches or so in the rear, and like 22 in the front. So in theory, I should take half of that rake out with this leveling kit. We'll find out once I get it done. All right, so as you can see, it's a pretty standard setup here, nothing wild going on. So I'm hoping that what we can do here is just disconnect these lines to give myself plenty of slack. Of course, the sway bar has to be disconnected. The upper ball joint will get disconnected so that the lower control arm can get pushed down out of the way. And then hopefully that'll allow the strut to come out. Got my father helping me on this project. Here he is releasing the upper ball joint. And then you gotta take all these nuts off the top of the strut, of course. We did end up having to loosen up the steering linkage and move that out of the way. It was very quick to do, and it made it a whole lot easier to pop the strut out. All right, so here's the finished product. This is what the old girl looks like. Now, after it's settled in, I got exactly 1.5 inches of lift in the front, which is exactly what it should have been. So it was as advertised. And so with the measurements, it came out exactly like I wanted. So that worked out great. And, you know, like I said, they weren't all that difficult to install. Thanks to my dad for helping out with that. We got this knocked out in no time. And now I have to decide what to do about this. My son's back there cleaning his truck out, by the way. But I don't like the way they have so much positive offset on the factory wheels. Now, I have looked and looked around, and I found some aftermarket wheels that I kind of like, but I don't know. Just don't know if I want to spend the money on it, at least not right now. So I think what I'm going to do is just use some wheel spacers. I mean, these wheels aren't hideous, and they're brand new. Might as well get my money's worth out of them. So I went to Bora and got some wheel spacers, and these are 1.5 inch spacers. And the reason I went with 1.5 inch is because the aftermarket wheels that I was looking at would kind of give me an equivalent offset to using the factory wheels with a 1.5 inch spacer. In other words, how far the sidewall of the tire sticks out would be the same between just throwing these on with the factory wheels versus getting those aftermarket ones that I like. So I'm going to do this. Far less expensive option. Allows me to keep the factory wheels and tires, and like I said, get my use out of them. So we'll just try this out and see how it looks. Now, they've got them all wrapped up here good and tight, so I have to unpackage all of this. This is the aluminum, straight up aluminum finish. You can get them in black if you want, but sometimes it takes a little longer to get the black ones because there's an extra process they do to them. I told them I don't really care. All right, there's the first one on. I called the guys at the Bora place where I got these from, and I asked them, should I use Loctite or not? They said that they generally don't recommend it. They understand that some people really like to use it, but they don't ever use it, and they don't have any problems. So the main thing is just to torque these down properly. And what I do is the typical cross pattern, and then once they're all tight, I go around to make sure that I don't miss any and torque them again. And so that should be good to go. Now, something else that I bought while I'm doing this project is some solid lug nuts. Everybody knows that the two-piece design that come on these Ford trucks from the factory absolute garbage and they will give you problems over time. So I went ahead and bought some one-piece solid lug nuts to replace the factory ones with, and that should never be a problem. All right, here's a little side-to-side comparison. This side has the spacers on, and you can see that the tire just barely does stick out past the fender. And again, here's the side without spacers, and if you get down at the same angle, you can barely even see the tires. You can't see the back tire. It's way tucked up under there. But on this side you can. And if I go back here and look at this view, I think it's perfect. That's pretty much exactly what I was wanting. So that worked out pretty good. Now time will tell how these hold up, but these Bora spacers are supposed to be the best ones money can buy. So, you know, when you're dealing with something like this that's an obvious safety item, you got to have these work out properly. You want to spend the money and get some good stuff. So just got to do this side. Oh, and by the way, I have a concrete block on the brake pedal. That way I can torque the bolts without them spinning on me, because I'm doing this by myself. So that's why the brake lights are on. But anyway, yeah, I decided to go this route. We'll try this for a while. Like I said, these tires are brand new. I'm not a big fan of them. I mean, they work out okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with the tires. It's just not my subjective preference, but they're brand new. Might as well wear them out and then get something better later on. So, all right, that's gonna finish up this project. Got the leveling kit on, getting the wheel spacers put on before this rain rolls in. And we'll see what happens next time. But I'm gonna go ahead and finish this up. I appreciate you guys watching. We will talk to you later.